We can play with the inputs. You have 4 new microphones, a couple of direct interface boxes to plug in instruments like guitars or keyboards, things like that. I think you have 5 or 6 new mic cables. There's a few mic stands back there. We'll go through all that when we're done here, show you kind of where everything is at. And like I said, you guys will have to figure out where you want to store that and how to handle security. That is things that will walk away.
Well, we want to add wireless mics.
Pardon me?
We want to add more wireless mics in the future.
Mm-hmm. Permanently, or you're renting?
Permanent.
Permanently. Then we'd probably just put them in the rack here
rack over there?
and plug them in the way you want to.
Okay.
Like I said, right now I've got just the way the drawing showed me to do this with the wireless on the last portion. What I did.
Fine.
But the other 4 channels are just laying back there from the patch panel in the back. So all you do is you want to move them, just unplug them, put them where you want, plug the other ones back in so you've got full use of your board. And then the same thing, you know, if you got more wireless, you just run the wires up here and label them who they are and plug them in the way you want. Okay, let's do a board setup here real quick. Gather around, kids.
Is it safe to unplug it for a little bit?
Go ahead. Is there a hole in this?
There's going to be. There was supposed to be one on the side of this rack, but that was before the racks were changed to something different.
Okay.
So I'm going to see if I can't find a rack mount piece that will just allow us some outlets on the front of this unit. You can unplug my computer there if you want to. Sure, yeah. Just unplug my computer. It'll last a while. Just pull that. Yeah, it's fine.
We just got this camera and batteries about there.
That's all right. No problem. Okay, first thing everybody does is when they look at this board, all they see are knobs, and they get excited. So let me have this thing here leaning on. We're going to do this. This is how you learn how to run this board, because once you know this, you'll know the rest of this board pretty much. We're going to go right down the line. I'm going to tell you what everything is and what it does. The top button is, it says plus 48. And what that is, that's phantom power for condenser type microphones, which you do have a couple of those. You have some 58 betas, and then you have some Shure 87s, which are an awesome vocal mic. And those are a condenser microphone. Oh, these are great vocal mics, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But if you want really clear highs and stuff, they're great for female voices, actually, the 87s. But they're a condenser microphone, so they require this phantom power. So if you plug a microphone in and it doesn't work, then you want to go like this. And then that will send the phantom power to that input however you have it patched, okay?
You said the Shures aren't, right?
These are not.
Yeah, okay,
These are just a standard dynamic microphone. Gotcha. Usually most condenser mics are like a podium type microphone or the smaller cartridge microphones, you know, the ones with the goosenecks and things like that. That is normally a condenser microphone. But you do have some microphones that are, you know, like a handheld microphone that are still condenser and needs that. A couple of microphones that you want to be careful if you have performers bringing in their own mics. Ribbon microphones do not tolerate phantom power. It will smoke. It's a ribbon microphone is $1,000 some. You'll smoke it.
I don't think those will come around here.
You'd be surprised. There's some guys that come in with ribbon mics, but I always recommend that when you're done with this board, you put it, unless you're going to be using it the same way the next day, I always call zero it out. Start everything flat, turn everything off, so that way if somebody plugs something in and phantom power is on and doesn't like it, you won't smoke it at least, okay? All right, next button down is called Polarity. And what that does is it switches the input from positive to negative. The reason you have polarity buttons is sometimes condenser microphones don't like being fairly close together, and they'll start to get what's called a tunnel effect. They'll start canceling each other out, start sounding thin. Or regular microphones do that if you get them really close. So you want to throw the other microphone close to it out of polarity so it's opposite from the last one, and then they won't interact with each other.
Nice.
All right? So usually button up on that. Polarity is positive, it's always up. All right? Next button down is called line or pad. It's a button that does two things. Right now we're plugged in all the microphone level inputs. So you want that button up as a microphone level. But if you plug into the line level signal of the board, it's got a little 1/4-inch jack on it. The only way you access that is to push that down. That accesses the line input. The other thing that does when it's pushed in, if you're plugged into the microphone input and the device that's plugged in has a really hot signal, it pads it down by 20 dB. So it takes the signal. Sometimes, if you plug something that's really hot, you have no control over here. It's just going to be loud. It's going to be distorted. Pushing that down gives you a manageable input signal. Okay? Next button is gain, or some people call it trim. That controls how much signal comes from the device that's plugged into that input. So that will not, that's the most important part of this board, setting that up and make sure you get enough signal from the device plugged in. If you don't get enough, you get hiss and noise and things like that when you turn up the volume. If you get too much, it'll distort, sounds harsh, might be a little rough sounding. So getting good gain is important because when you get good gain, you get good output in the long run. And the next switch, it's called HPF. That's a high pass filter. And what that does, it takes the signal and rolls the frequency off at 100 hertz, which is good for like vocal microphones, overhead microphones, because they don't require that lower frequencies to operate because it creates a rumble in here. Also, too, if you've got, on this stage you shouldn't have that problem, but on stages, if you have people walking and you can hear them walking through the stand and stuff like that, it vibrates through the stand, it'll get rid of that. People handling the microphones, you get that rumble, it'll get rid of that. So HPF, anytime you put voice in, I always say, push the HPF in, okay? So that's called your gain section. That's basically where everything controls the input. Next one down is your EQ section. Oh, something you should always notice too, on the EQ in, the button should be in. If the button is not in, this section will not work. Why they put them on there, I don't know, but it's a recording thing, I'm sure. EQ in, you have highs. You have high mids, low mids, and lows. All right? These are called hard controls. These run your highs, high mids, high lows, or mid lows, and lows. These buttons are fine control. They are a sweep control for, you can see it kind of got a little paragraph around it there, little lines. Okay. This knob correlates with this one correlates with this one. And all this is, they call it a sweeper knob. And all it does is it changes the center point of this knob to kind of fine tune that mid or this low mid. And I'll show you how that works. But I know some of the, I always use the analogy, the old TVs used to have the old tuning knob around the channel selector. You guys that turn that to fine tune, that's basically what that is. All right? Of course, today's TVs, you don't do that anymore. So.
I don't know what that is. What? You don't know what that is?
Nope, a lot of people don't anymore. Yep. All right, so that's your EQ section. Next section is your aux section. Auxes are basically, you have 4 channels of monitors in this. So aux 1 is your monitor 1, and on those plates I showed you, that's where the monitors plug in, and we'll show you those. So you have aux 1, aux 2, aux 3, and aux 4 are monitors 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Right now, aux 5 and 6 do nothing on this board, but they're good for, like if you have like a Zoom recorder and you want to record to that, works for that. If you want to throw effects into the board, it's good for that. So you can do with whatever you want with them. Basically, they're just all guys named Joe that do a different job. The buttons tell you how these auxiliary buttons will function. Right now I've got them up in post mode. And what post does is it allows the monitor to be after this fader. So anything that you do on the main fader will affect these auxiliaries. All right? So like, say you use 5 and 6 for recording outputs. You want them in a post mode so that as you're mixing the show, the recording is getting the same thing. All right? Most of the time, since auxes 1 through 4 are your monitors 1 through 4, you want them in a pre-mode. And what pre-mode means is it takes the signal before this fader, so that anything that you do here doesn't affect the level of your monitor. So your performer's singing with a CD, let's say. And if you were to make adjustment here in a post mode, it would change the monitor, and that really usually throws a performer off. Once the monitor is set, you should never have to change it unless they ask for something specific. So usually I always say monitors should be in a pre-mode. So that way, once you set it, the performer's happy, then you can do whatever you want back here. It won't bother them. So we'll leave that in pre-mode. The next button is your pan button. What that does is it tells it either left or right in this situation. Next button down, mute button. It turns that channel off, and it also turns it off to all the auxiliaries, anything that's fed out of this board. It mutes that input. So monitors, all that stuff gets turned off when it's muted.
Even if this is in pre?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. PFL, that is a pre-fade listen. What that allows you to do is see the input signal on the main meters over here, and I'll show you how that works. Anytime you push that, let's peel this back a little bit. We'll come to the main section here in a little bit. Anytime I push that, you see that little light. That tells you that you're in either PFL or AFL mode. Some of the outputs have AFL, which is after fade listen, and PFL is pre-fade listen. Okay? That allows you to help you set up a signal. Remember, we talked about input gain up here earlier. Doing that helps you set up your input very well. All right, next one down is your, of course, is all of your assignment buttons. Now, this board is set up a little differently than a standard board because we did things in subgroups. So, like I told you before, anything that's going to be voice related should go 1 and 2. And it does. These are groups 1 and 2 with that. That's voice left and right. Now, if you took this pan button and went this way, it'd be in the left side only. If you took it this way, it'd be in the right side only. So that's basically, it's just a balance control. Okay? Anything that's program related, music, video, things like that, should go into 3 or 4. And that will put it into program left and right. And what that does is basically puts a lot more of the signal to the subs, gives you a little more bottom end where you don't need that for the voices. And then, of course, we have our level control. All right, before I go any further, did I lose everybody, or are we still on the same page?
What about your left, right?
Left, right, you won't use that here.
Okay.
Left, right puts it right straight to left and right. Now, even though the left, right are not connected, I still want to use these in the center section because if you don't have these up, you don't see anything here on the main output. All right? So let's talk about the center section a little bit. We got a couple places to go. We have our main section, which is all your groups, which are groups 1 and 2 for voice left and right, and then group 3 and 4, which is for program left and right. So everything on the main section, right up to the red arrows, that's what's called zero or unity gain. A good analogy for zero or unity gain is garbage in, garbage out. The closer you can get things to run to that zero mark, the cleaner this board's going to sound. You know, if you've got so much signal and you're running things down here, it'll work, but you're not getting a good representation of that signal. Or if you got to run things clear up to here, either you've got poor signal input or something's wrong with the device that's plugged in. Okay. Let's see. Mutes for all the groups. Now, if you did this, it doesn't mute anything because nothing's plugged into it, but it looks cool. Anytime you can get lights on, that's awesome. These buttons here really don't do anything sound-wise. All I'm doing is I'm steering the signal from here to left and right to allow me to see it on the meters here. So if I turn those one way or the other, it wouldn't change the sound any. It's just a visual thing. A lot of people like to look the meters and let them go. These are your masters for your auxiliaries. Remember we talked about aux 1 through 5 or through 6 here. These are the masters for these. I have arrows where they're supposed to be. And then we have the matrix. The matrix it's good for recording because you can take the signal from anywhere and go out of the matrix and you have a single level for the entire thing. Matrices are okay if you know how to work them. If you don't know how to work them, I would say don't use them, okay? Because they can be a little tricky. But basically, you can take the signal from any of the outputs off of this board and put it into one major output. Let's see, what else we got here? Trying to think, do we have talkback? We have a talkback mic, but we're not using that. We're not using that. Talkback mic. If you wanted to use a talkback mic, there's an input 4. It says talkback right on it. This is the volume and allows you to steer it anywhere you want to. So say you want a talkback microphone to the monitors on stage. You would push aux 1 and 2 and aux 3 and 4, and that'll send that microphone. Anytime you push talk and hold it, that'll send your voice back to the monitors on stage.
That
That would be awesome.
Do that again. Where do you speak into?
Well, you need a microphone.
You need a mic.
You need a microphone for it. Yep.
Right there.
Talk's right there, yep. So if you want a little talkback mic, some guys will get a little condenser type microphone, just plug it in, and they'll go, "What were you thinking?" That's how that works. I mean, yelling just doesn't work.
Well,
Yeah.
I just yell louder that way.
Sure.
In surround sound.
Everybody can hear. Nobody's gonna miss it. So, but you have to hold that down to be able to talk.
You have to hold it down to talk.
And
yep.
this has to be up.
That is basically the volume that you want. Yep. If that's all the way down, they're not going to hear you. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
I think that's all you need to know on this board for now. So let's set up an input. All right. You got a performer on stage. You go, all right, do your thing in the microphone. Now, if they're singing, have them sing. Because most people, they'll just go, check, 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 blah, blah. Well, then they start singing and they're bellowing up there. And all of a sudden you're, readjusting the whole board because they weren't that loud to start with. So you want them to do what they're going to be doing. So what I always do is first thing is push in my PFL, see if I even get a signal. Here I am already. I'm starting to talk. Now we want to try to get that as close to 0 as we can. So we take our gain knob. Oh, before I start, make sure everything is at 12 o'clock on the EQ. You want a nice flat EQ to start. Otherwise, you're already having some problems. So make sure the EQ is all flattened out, real nice. 12 o'clock. Auxiliaries are off. Everything is assigned where it's supposed to be. Now we're doing voice, so where do we put it? 1 and 2, correct. And we leave it in the middle unless we want it to be on one side or the other. All right? So we're already looking. I'm going to turn this up to 0, and I'm going to start turning my knob here at the top. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I just set up my board. I'm running at 0. I'm running at 0 on input. Check 1, 2. I can get a little more on that if I need to, because I can run this right up to 0 if I want to. So we can take a little bit more, shift 1, 2. Now, it's just a matter of how you want this microphone to sound. Right now, it sounds pretty booming. So we're going to take our high pass filter and we're going to push that in. That gets rid of the lower end rumble that we talked about, the handling of the microphone, things like that. To me, it still sounds a little muddy, so I'm going to take lower ends and I'm just going to roll back a little bit. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to take a little bit more on the low end. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to break me up a little. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Test. 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Test. And that's the quick way to do it. Any questions?
No.
Now, these microphones, especially this microphone, makes no difference if the phantom power is in or not. It'll work either way. It just any microphone that doesn't require phantom power usually just ignores it. All right. Dean, would you go grab me an 87? It's back in the rack room. So we set that up for 58. Believe it or not, 58s are the most common microphone that you use, and most microphones are tailored around a 58 or more. So, you know, those EQ settings will work pretty well for just about any handheld microphone. The only thing you might have to change is gain. Some microphones have more output, some have less. You know, it all depends on what gets plugged in.
What's the difference between a 58 and 58 beta?
The 58 beta has a little crisper high end on it than a standard 58. 58 is the old rock and roll standby where when you're done singing you can use it as a hammer. You know, those things will last forever. I got a case of 24 of them and it's just amazing. Some of them are probably 17, 18 years old, you know. They're pretty, you know, about every 2 years I change the top on them so they don't get full of crud, you know. You get so many guys drinking and smoking into them, you got to do something with them. All right, so this is an 87. And then basically you can see the two differences here. This one's a real skinny little microphone. Now I'm going to mute this. I'm going to change it. Anytime that you plug anything into this sound system or unplug any of this sound system, one of two things have to happen. Either you mute it or you turn the volume down. Because you can do damage to a sound system, especially with a condenser microphone plugged in. That phantom power we talked about up here puts a small voltage on this microphone, and when you unplug it while it's turned up, it's going to bring everybody out of their seat about a foot because it pops very loudly. So right now we have nothing because phantom power is not in there. Now mute it. Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So see that EQ, it's a little brighter, but you know, it's pretty close. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now you notice too, we also have input level here, so that's always a good indication that you can watch things here. So you know, say all of a sudden you got this terrible noise, you're like, oh, where's that coming from? This will give you a good visual of, hey, here's that noise. You can mute it. And, also, too, if you have headphones and when you push the PFL, there's that signal, which is a little hot. When you push that in, you can hear that signal through headphones. So that's also a nice little troubleshooter. So if you're plugged in and all of a sudden you're getting this horrible noise, you can start punching through one at a time and find it and hopefully fix it. Now, most of the time, it's a cable problem.
Where'd you hook in your headphones?
Phones. Right there, yep. Now we have one small problem with this mixer board, or with this mixer desk.
Told you.
So we're working on that fix. I think what we're going to do is actually just lower this into the desk a little bit, just to clear it. But nobody's giving me the okay on what to do yet.
Okay.
So, but we'll get her so you can just close it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
So like with the condenser mics, where do you hang them?
No.
That looks different than a condenser. You put that on a stand.
Yeah, this is a regular handheld microphone.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Which one is better for vocalists?
Is it something that you would want them to sing right into?
Yes. Any handheld microphone you want to run here.
Okay.
They don't work out here.
All right.
Yep. So if you want to have microphones that work out here, you want like a boom type microphone, small condenser microphone. A lot of places sell them as group choir mics, but they're also great for soloists. Just because, like I do installs at churches all the time, and they buy this choir mic thinking, oh, we're going to pick up the whole choir, but then they have the person that's going to do a solo, and they don't want to use that microphone. I said, well, make sure that soloist is in the choir where they can take one step toward that microphone, and they'll stand right out from the rest of the crowd. Or if you have somebody that's going to be holding music or a stand, but doesn't want that right in their nose, you just get that little choir mic out there close to them, it'll pick them up great.
We have some hanging condenser, the small condensers that we use for choir. That we'll probably, I guess, plug in up in the catwalk and drop them down.
Yep, that's what those are for up there.
And those require phantom power too.
Those require probably phantom power, yep, more than likely. Now, do they have little packs with them, do you know, or are they just a standard cable?
They're just a cable.
Okay, some are different. You know, some require the little pack, which is a preamp, and then some have to go right on the cord, so. Okay. Now, keep in mind, too, your choir or your microphone placement depends on your situation. You know, if you got a choir with 40, 50 kids up there, you don't need the microphones right close to them. But if you're going to do a soloist or somebody speaking, you want them microphones down there as close as you can get them without, you know, getting tangled up in their costume or whatever they're wearing. So, I mean, you know, like for plays, the biggest problem I always see with plays is they stick those overhead mics up there, but they're, you know, 15, 16 feet in the air. They're not picking up anything but noise, you know. They hear more of the kids shuffling around the back than they do the people talking.
Sure.
You got to get them down there. I always say, pick out your tallest guy and make him do this. And if he can touch the microphone, that's close enough for everybody.
Sure. That's good. Okay. So this is the better vocal mic.
Either one works well. It depends on the timbre of the voice. This
What
is
about the
great
wireless?
for
Better than the
wireless.
wireless?
This is the same thing as the wireless.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 58s.
Okay.
Yep, so this microphone, yeah, there it is, right there. Oh, yeah, let's turn that bad boy on. One switch, too, by the way. And then I have all the switches on here locked out, so kids are going, hey, what's that do? And they can't do anything.
Okay. Well done.
So, let's see, this one. Check, wrong one. There we go. So that's with a flat EQ.
Hold it.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. About the same thing. These two microphones are really close. This one just gives you a little more clarity on the high end, a little more pure high end stuff.
Sure.
So I always say this is a great female vocalist, especially if it's a soft spoken vocalist. This is a very good microphone for that. You know, if you got Patsy Cline singing up there, then give her this
Soft-spoken
one.
vocalist, you're right.
Yeah.
And those don't exist.
Hey, don't laugh. I went to a school in Dubuque one time. I was actually setting up their choir microphones, and a whole group of kids came in. And it was so loud I couldn't hardly hear myself think. Then finally the choir director, all right, let's get busy. And they started singing, and you're like, what? I couldn't hear a thing.
I can sing loud.
And so I made him stop, and I gave him the speech of, listen, you guys came in here like a roar of thunder, and then when it comes time for you to be heard, you're quiet as can be. I said, sing out. And the choir's like, oh, thank you. They did a good job after that, but it was just kind of funny. Let's get a monitor hooked up. Let me go back and get a monitor hooked up. So everybody want to come up on stage, I'll show you how it works.
Should I unplug this thing?
Probably
You can probably pause it.
I don't know, 27 hours.
Then you should probably be able to then.
The dies.
Probably use a pause.
If it's 27 hours.
You have 4 monitors.
That would be fun memory.
I don't know what I'm doing.
You're doing great. Tanner, you're like the tech guy.
Yeah.
I do lighting stuff, not sound.
One of these bad boys, and I'm going to bring another set out.
She's gonna go out here.
Yamaha, yes! Of course it's Yamaha, why wouldn't it be?
It's made in USA.
But it's Japanese! Because it makes perfect sense.
We had a lot of features on our board already, really. Just a couple things we didn't. You want one on each side, or we?
No, we can just do them both here. So let's make this monitor 1, we'll make that monitor 2. And on the sides, there are a few different inputs. We have what are called speak-on connectors. These are a twist lock. So they only go in one way. Twist them, they lock. When you take them out, you have to pull the collar back and twist them the other way to put them in. So just give them a spin until they fit. There it goes. That locked right on there. So now they can't come out. You can't turn them out unless you pull the collar back.
That's cool.
So let's make this one 1. Let's make yours number 2 on that plate over there.
Can't really see it anymore.
Here.
I think I might get a new phone before I go to
So
Hawaii.
these are all in conjunction with wireless, or I'm sorry, with auxiliaries 1 and 2. So I'm going to go back to the board, and I'm going to turn the music down and off.
I'm gonna step, so they don't fall off the stage or fall into the pit. Like those were meant for dumb. They're sending them. They don't have them yet.
So here's aux 1. Then here's 2.
My sound restored. Put that in my car.
Just mount them on the back of the car. Don't even put them in the car.
So if I take this, I'm in aux 1. And now I'm in aux 2. Simple as that. Now, if I take and push the mute button on the music, it goes away. Same thing with the voice.
I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk.
What I would do to have him in the car. Dude, just oh, how much those cost? Have you ever seen the concert Yamaha subwoofers they make? They're 4.5 feet tall and they weigh 150 pounds. And if you get close enough to them, they'll grab your chest.
The volume control on that manager panel. And then when we get done here, we're going to have everybody do a little playing on the board so they understand, get an idea of where things are at. So let's go over here to the managers.
All right, yeah.
This is wireless A. This is the one we want to use for you can take, you don't get the board or anything. Remember, you have it either in handheld or you also have it in headset.
So
This control runs mics A and B, which are also on those plates. They're labeled mic A and B, and wireless A. When the system turns on, this does a little dance of lights and then goes out. Don't let that throw you. It's dark now, all you gotta do is push a button. And now this button allows you to select which input you're going to use. And it'll only select the 3 because that's the only 3 I programmed into this. So we're gonna stop on wireless A. Now that same knob becomes your volume control. And I've got it set up so that that's as loud as, let's turn it on.
That's as loud as I ever get. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. So you don't want it loud, just back it off a little bit.
Now, on this you'll notice that it's got to be up quite a ways before it'll work. And that's on purpose. So that I've set up the maximums on this thing so that when you go like this, you're not squealing and setting everybody in place wrong. Yeah. My A and B are set up the same way. There's no control at the board for these mics. So it's all right here.
Could you have all 3 working at the same time?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can do all 3.
You just sort of tap it to change the volume on each
Right.
one?
Yep, every time I tap it, it's going to show me the present volume location. So if I did this, and went here, did that, as I go through, it's going to show me where the volume is for each one. And what's nice with this system is if you turn it off, The next time you turn it on, it's ready to go. You don't have to follow it. Remember what you did. So if you set up something nice when you turn it on, it's going to be ready to go. So you don't have to go back there and adjust anything.
How did you turn it on?
It comes on with the system, but when what they call initializes, it only needs to do a little lap dance here, and then we'll talk. All you gotta do is just push the button once, and it'll light up and start.
So you never have to turn up on the board if you just want to use this. I can just come over here, push that green button, wait for it to load.
Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly.
And this microphone only works with the system.
For wireless.
Does it have like a pack that goes with it?
It does have a pack, it has a headset. Now, we talked about before, you can't use both mics at the same time. You can only use one of the wireless 1 or wireless 2 at the same time, at one time.